Well, good morning, everybody. We're here today with Misty and Mandy from Olive Tree Property Management Group. We're going to talk today a little bit about property management, and I'd love to start with you guys, just get how you got into it. I know you've been doing it a long time, so how you got into it, dive in from there.
Well, sure. Okay, so I'm Misty, and I have been in the real estate industry since the mid to late 90s. I first started by doing administrative duties for E.E. Bayless Jr. real estate. And then so I've got licensed in 2000 and have been doing real estate ever since. So anything to do from rental listings to sales and buyers. Though I have found that my niche or my gift of what I enjoy with real estate is the rental market.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been doing the property management?
Property management, specializing in it for about the last, I'd say 13 years.
Okay.
And then we just opened Olive Tree Property Group March 1st of 2022. I had opened management divisions for several other real estate companies. And this time I decided we're going to
do it on your own.
We're going to do it
I
on
like
our
the
own
entrepreneurship.
And have a little bit more say on some areas that we see that are missing from the industry that we think that it should have and give.
Yeah. It's always nice to have a little bit more control over what's going on, especially in your own house, just be able to make the changes that you guys want to make as things progress and grow. That's
exactly.
Good. So.
Yep. And then Mandy has joined me about 9 years ago.
I wasn't licensed when I got with Misty. I already taken the courses, did all that, just didn't take the test. And it was probably, 2 years after I was working for Misty. Then I got my real estate. Well, then I actually got my license. And then now I'm West Virginia.
Okay.
But before Misty, I worked for other companies doing property management. And then I did that when I was in West Virginia. So it's been a while, but I just pretty much, since I've been in Virginia, I've pretty much been with Misty.
Gotcha. Nice. So why don't you guys talk a little bit about property management, what that looks like for somebody who just bought a rental unit. Do I manage it myself? Do I not manage it myself? What do you guys see as the biggest benefits? What is it that you guys do on a day-to-day basis? Maybe that's a good way to approach it too. Just the ins and outs of how much it actually takes to manage a property.
Well, that's one good thing about the rentals. There is no day that is the same.
No.
So every single day, every moment from 1 minute to the next is different, which is one thing that we actually enjoy about it.
And it's really 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Right. Yeah.
There's not.
No
It's not.
off
It's
days.
not like a 9 to 5. No.
Yeah.
No.
I
weekends. We do try to structure it as such.
We do.
Because if you don't, then you end up with zero life.
Yeah.
Right.
So for property management, for somebody who is just buying a property, the number one thing that I would tell them is screening of your tenant.
Yeah.
Credit, eviction data, court records. Virginia court case information for at least our area is free. Be sure to, as an owner and as a landlord, to do your due diligence.
And that's something that
screening.
You guys do with every person that...
We do.
Okay.
We do a thorough screening of them. Our system is a national tenant database system, and it checks credit, criminal, eviction data, terrorist list data.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
And then it cross-references.
Okay. So it gives you kind of a whole picture. And what are some of the things that you guys look for when you're looking at a tenant's history? Obviously... tenancy history is important, how they've been as a tenant and, if they've been evicted. But what other things do you look for typically?
So
their income.
Income is definitely a big one. Most of our owners want to see that rent is not going to exceed a third of the household income. Okay. And that can be combined, husband, wife, or, if it's two roommates, however that is. Whatever the household income is, they don't want the rent to exceed a third of that.
Got it. Okay.
They'll want to see the longevity. How long did they rent at the previous places they've lived? How long have they been on their job? I always recommend to my owners to not have a minimum credit score. I recommend that they look at every situation as a whole because unfortunately, medical items hit a lot of people and you could end up with a medical collection, but that's not really what your overall outlook of your credit is because you've had one or two medical collections.
Yeah. No, that
that
makes
can
sense.
really take down your score. And is
And it's
that
super
worth you not
expensive.
having a roof over your head?
Right.
You know, so I always say look at everything as a picture. Take into account previous landlord history is huge.
Case by case basis.
Case by case, yeah.
Got it.
Take a look at that credit. If they've had lates that were affecting their credit score maybe 2 years ago, but they've had the last 12 months where they haven't had any lates and they haven't had any collections. So I always
It's
say
a good outlook.
yeah, you just want to look at everything as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're all in life and we mess up sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
That's a good
And we need
perspective.
someone-
to have.
Everybody needs a place to live.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
we
how
all
we look
deserve
at
a
it.
roof over our head.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
no,
so-
that makes a lot of sense. So right now, how many doors do you guys manage? I mean, that's pretty specific,
We
but
get this question.
We get this
so
question
many
quite a
times.
bit. I would say that we are managing over 200 units.
okay.
We really don't keep up with that on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's not our outlook.
Yeah.
Our outlook for the management company is not to be the number one in the area. I don't care about number one status.
Mm-hmm. Right,
I care
right.
about service.
Yeah, absolutely. Which makes a lot of sense because I know if you go online and search property management, there's some very large companies that do it. And then
There
you
is.
look at the reviews and the service is always,
Yeah.
I can't
But
get
you
a
can-
hold of
remember,
anybody.
You can pay for your Google rating. You can
Yeah,
pay
that too.
to be
Absolutely.
number one in the Google search.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. I just mean if you pull up everybody, you can go down the list and see everybody who's there, and you can see there's a lot of big companies, and you can tell the difference. I mean, when you look at your house and small business over these companies that probably have hundreds of employees, you can tell the difference. Even reading in the comments, people that have said, I'm struggling to get a hold of somebody, I can't talk to anybody, I want to know what's going on. Well, this seems to be a common trend in
Yes.
that bigger management style company. So I think it's good that you guys are small and focusing on service. That's much better than trying to be
Yeah.
every single door in Winchester.
Exactly, and I'm not worried. We're not worried about
No.
that. We're just worried about taking care of our clients to the best of our ability, protecting their asset to the best of our ability, and including them as much as they want to be included, which
Yeah.
is a little, I guess, a little different with us. Is we have a catered management agreement, as you know, per owner. So what we may do for you would be something different that we do for someone else. You
Right.
may not want to be heavily involved and know of every single moment of everything that's going on. You just want to know, like, of the big pictures. Is this going to cost me more than this much money? We have other owners who want to stay heavily involved with the day-to-day process of it. And
Okay.
so we'll work with them on that too. We don't just take over your, couple $1,000 investment property and then leave you in the dark.
Right, right. Well, I know when we were talking at your office, one of the things you brought up that was a really good point, and we've been talking about it a lot on this series, is understanding return on investment, understanding what it takes and looking at it through that lens, which I think is a different perspective than at least other property companies as well. You both understand that concept of, hey, if I'm going to put money into something, what's the return that it's going to bring back to me? And being able to have those conversations with the doors that you are managing, the people that you're managing their investment for, that's a huge part of it. So can you talk a little bit more about your perspective on return on investment? And
Well, it depends on the owner and what they're looking for on that. We currently have a couple owners that we're working with, and if they're not getting so much return out of one unit, we do discuss with them if there's another opportunity. For example, this unit is not bringing you as much return as you need or should be getting. So I would suggest you sell this unit, and then here's another unit, and your return would be much more. And so we work with our investors that way as well.
specifically for
Specifically to maximize their return, as much return as they can get with the current market that we're in.
Right. And I think the other part of that is every person's situation is different. So if your financials are really strong, it's easier to go into a unit that needs a lot of work and say, yeah, on day one, I'm not going to get a large return, but after a year, if I put some work into this, I can really be making a lot of money. And just being able to understand that difference is huge.
Right.
So I think that's a good, again, tailored outlook. That's really important.
Yeah, and we'll even work with the owners, for example, like if they need if let's say it's a 2-bathroom house and the bathrooms need remodeled. to keep it less invasive on the owner in their pocket, we'll even work with them and the tenant as to remodeling one of the bathrooms while the tenant's there and the income's coming in.
Yeah. No, that makes
And
sense.
try to do that instead of waiting until everything's vacant. You have no money coming in, and here I need you to spend $15,000 to do this.
Right. And that's a lot of thing. I think people get scared of that often when they're talking about rental properties. It's easy to look. And with Marlon, we went over, okay, 10% maintenance cost a year. That doesn't account for if you need 20 grand going into a unit that's been, it's 30 years old, hasn't been updated, needs new toilets, new this, new that. That can be something that is sticker shock a lot of times for owners. And it's nice to know that you guys have the perspective of working with them as opposed to just, here's a bill. Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So in particular for property management, what's your perspective on the benefit as opposed to someone who's thinking, oh, I'm going to manage it myself in terms of the cost, what you guys charge? It's an easy way. Let's go over that. What does it look like paying a property manager, and what do they get for that in return? What's included? And obviously yours is tailored, so people can be as involved as they want to, but on a day-to-day basis, if someone comes in and is curious about rental management, what would be the things that you would highlight?
Sure. So our management fee, generally speaking, overall, is 10% of the rents and or late fees collected a month. Now, you'll notice that's something different with management companies because some management companies keep late fees. We just charge a management fee off of that.
Okay.
For our management customers, we also do a procuring fee or a leasing fee, it's also known as. And we'll reduce that from what is a gross month if you're not managed. We reduce down to a half of a month for the leasing fees on that.
Which is very inexpensive, relatively. I have experience with other management companies. That's inexpensive in comparison to what other people in the area charge.
Yeah. And so if you're a larger investor, then we have discount plans. As you have 10 or more units, then there's a discount for that. As you have, that keeps going, then there's a further discount. Where I would say management is good, whether it be with me or anyone else, I think management is fantastic. You're dealing with someone who has 100 properties, but more than likely, whatever situation the owner's going through, the manager has already seen it and been through it. Or they have several resources where they can get that information. We seen a lot back in 2020 during COVID when that hit and landlords weren't getting paid. We were seeing a lot of owners and landlords not knowing what to do.
Unanswered questions,
nowhere to get it from unless they hired legal counsel, no direction, so we're great in that respect as a middleman between the landlord and the tenants, as well as keeping up with the current laws that are required through our state, as well as equal housing and
which
so
change,
on and so forth. And it changes all the time.
Yeah. Well, I know we were talking before too, just about the perspective from a tenant's point of view. I know one of the things that we value is just having that. It feels like a level of protection where the tenant is not dealing with us directly. So there's none of that conflict in terms of a personal relationship or, hey, they're my friend, so, I can skip rent or I can be late. And then it becomes this awkward cycle where I have a friend I was talking to the other day that was just saying, yeah, he's 2 months back on rent and now he needs a new AC unit and a new heater. And it's a really uncomfortable conversation because he knows he has to put that stuff in, but the person, and it's his friend. So it's like, I have to do it. And, that it eliminates some of that personal relationship with the with
We
the
had
tenant.
that with an owner. They would pay the rent to them directly and different things, and always a problem collecting until she got management.
Yeah.
And then it was, they paid. Yep. They paid.
Yeah.
We didn't have a problem.
Which is awesome. I think that's good. And I think that scares a lot of people too, is what happens if, I can't collect the rent. Well, it happens more frequently than I think we'd like. So to have that middle ground is really awesome. So in terms of, what people are interested in hearing, let's talk about some of your worst rental experiences. I'm sure you have stories. So
Yeah.
I
you
don't
can
know if
pick
they're fit
one.
for your camera, but
Everything's fit for our camera. That's what we do it ourselves here.
okay. So we have had a few horror stories.
We have.
The best thing is I can honestly attest to, I did not place those tenants in those units.
I believe
That
it.
is it.
They were
yes.
inherited, and basically they were inherited because the owner got them and didn't have any clue what to do about it or how to handle the situation.
Yes.
And this is what we find most of our eviction cases are where they've inherited the tenant. The new landlord has inherited the tenant. So the most recent horror story we had was an investor bought a townhome that was already occupied, and the seller who was selling it gave them no story of the tenant. And they tried working with that tenant for, 2 or 3 months?
Yes. I knew you were going to go. Yep, I knew where you
Yeah,
went with this one. Yeah.
It was absolutely, they had a horrible experience and didn't know what to do. And so they had to come to us. The long of the short of it is it ended up being an eviction case. She assaulted the police officers and was arrested and put in jail.
Yikes.
Yeah. And then we had to do the whole sit out process.
Yeah.
Which, even
the
as
worst.
horrible as she was, we tried to work with her friend to get as much of her stuff back to her, because our goal is not to keep a tenant's possessions.
Right.
It's for you. If you're supposed to be out of the property.
Personal items, and if we
Yeah.
see that, we do try.
Well, and I know that personal side of things too is going back to that personal connection piece. That's another part that's hard, is that if you do have an awkward situation like that where, someone's just refusing to pay and you were friends, how do you deal with that? What's that process look like? You can almost put a blinder on yourself to think, well, I don't really want to go after this person. And I think the thing that we forget is there's an opportunity to communicate that with you guys. I mean, it's not like it has to just be, oh, I'm going to hand it over to you guys and you're going to ram it down their throat. There's a process that you go through that can be, hey, what's the process look like? Your experience in going through that will allow them some perspective and hopefully help them manage that personal relationship with that person if it's struggling. The other thing too, that I'm a big small business person, and I think that's something that's often missed when we talk about rental management and rental properties. The times where we do need a bathroom replaced or a toilet replaced or downstairs or a basement redone or whatever that case may be, because you guys are working with these people on a frequent basis, you're probably getting a much better cost than if I just call, hey, my toilet's broken, and let me call the first person that comes up on my Google ads or whatever. That cost is probably going to be more expensive to the everyday person than it is to someone who's working with them. Would you say that's accurate, or?
I would say that's fairly accurate.
But they kind of make us a little bit more of a
priority.
Right.
Yes.
Is more so than the cost. We don't have the cheapest and we don't have the most expensive.
Right.
We have good vendors and licensed contractors that we have trust and faith in and know we can count on.
Yeah.
So when we have that phone call and we need them there in 2 hours, they can go in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we're not usually on the phone nonstop. Now, when it comes to doing a complete changeover,
or a general contractor.
Yeah, I'm not a general contractor. I mean, we can help facilitate maintenance items, but I want to make sure, because I think a lot of people that we have found and experienced here recently are thinking that management will basically be the contractor to subcontract out to get my house fixed. We do as much as we can to help, but that's not our primary goal.
Sure,
and
of course.
that's not the job or the experience that we have. We have third-party vendors that we use, and we give our owners and landlords that bill. So we have zero markup. You're not going to we're not going to have Lyle P. Stroh-Snyder go out and do this plumbing job and then recreate their bill and add on a fee.
Right.
You get a copy of Ms. Stroh-Snyder's bill, and you know what they did.
Yeah.
And where your money went.
Well, and that's important too. Just having transparency and knowing that you're not paying additional costs. That's huge.
Yeah, it's just our management fee a month, and that's part of that.
Yeah, which is great.
And then if some of our owners have their own vendors, and that is absolutely fine.
Is that typical, you think?
It
Depends.
It depends.
Yeah, it depends. I'd say we're probably 50-50.
Yeah, trying to keep track of everybody. We get it, but we know.
But we'll also use their vendors too. The only requirement we have is because we do have the public and we do have a tenant that's living there, is they have to be licensed and insured.
Of course.
Should there be an issue arise.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's everything I had. Thank you, ladies, so much for sitting down. I hope you enjoyed it. And when we have more interesting stuff to talk about, we'll have you back.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
He was wanting a juicier story on worst nightmares.